We're going to talk about reducing the risk of SIDS in the child care. Know that the chances of a child having SIDS is a real possibility in the child care setting, and we're going to look over where we're going to discuss some of the possibilities and some of the latest research in SIDS. Okay, so first we're going to start out talking about what sudden infant death syndrome is, or what is SIDS. It is an unexpected death of a seemingly healthy child 12 months or younger. So this child has no health concerns whatsoever in order for them to be considered a SIDS. No cause of death is determined by the death scene investigation and autopsy. So there will have to be a death scene investigation and autopsy. The child's medical history will be reviewed completely. And the thing about SIDS is experts cannot predict which babies will die from SIDS. Okay, so here we have a video that's going to bring awareness to what SIDS is. I will provide the link to that video so you can go back and look at it. It's a really powerful video, but it's a little bit lengthy, so I'll include that in a separate link for you to look at. Okay, so some facts about SIDS. It is the leading cause of death for babies from age 1 to 12 months of age. It's at highest risk when the children are 1 to 4 months old. So for those working in infant rooms, this is the room you really want to be concerned about SIDS, because remember, it's during that first year of life. But the first 4 months are the most critical and the time we really have to look at children. 90% happen between 1 and 6 months of age. There in the past have been a seasonal trend. We were seeing that most of the deaths from SIDS were happening during the wintertime, but after more studies, we're seeing that the SIDS deaths are spread evenly throughout the calendar year. And the thought was it was happening more in the winter because of the use of blankets and heavy bedding and toys in the bed with the children during the winter time to keep them warm. Looking at the gender of children, we do see more male deaths from SIDS. The exact cause of SIDS, again, is unknown, but SIDS is not caused by immunizations, and it's not caused by vomiting and choking. And we're going to look in just a minute at our anatomy to see why it's almost impossible for a child to choke whenever they are lying on their back. Approximately 20% of SIDS deaths occur when the infant is in the care of a non-parental child giver, so child caregiver, a non-parent. So when that child's away from home, so we're seeing 60% happens in family child care and those type of settings where children are being babysat at home by a caregiver, being cared for at home. 20% happens in your child care centers, and 20% happen when the children are with a relative, them taking care of the child. Infants tend to be, if we look at the demographics, and this is an older study from 2000, the infants tended to be Caucasian with an older or more educated parent. So they looked at a whole lot of babies in that study, and that was just a tendency, Caucasian with an older or more educated parent. Okay, so looking at SIDS in the child care, approximately 1/3 of SIDS-related deaths in the child care occur during the first week. So when you receive a new child into your child care setting, really pay attention to that precious one. And half occur during the first day. So Out of all the SIDS deaths that take place in a child care center, half of them happen the first day they start a new child care center. There's something intrinsic. I mean, is it something intrinsic to child care? That it's happening there. There hasn't really been a connection found. But something that they have found is if that child is unaccustomed to sleeping on their tummy, usually that's when, if that child is asleep in that child care center on their tummy, those are the ones they're finding with SIDS. Why do people place babies on their tummies? If you reflect back to that first slide, you'll see that the campaign that helped develop this presentation I'm presenting was part of the Back to Sleep movement that started back in 1994, when approximately when the Back to Sleep motion campaign started. So that campaign was encouraging people to put babies to sleep on their backs rather than on their tummies. Reasons that people place babies on their tummy: they think that babies are more likely to choke or expire if they vomit or spit up. Okay, and the key word is think. Okay, I believe that there is a slide on here that shows how our throat is positioned and how it's virtually impossible for a child to choke that's laying on their stomach. And we'll look at that. I'll save that discussion for a little bit. Also, they put babies to sleep because they're worried that the babies won't sleep as well, so they put them on their tummies. And then sometimes they put them on their tummies because the parents request them to. But each child care center should have a policy that all the children will go to sleep on their backs. Okay, the thing about babies sleeping on their stomachs, yes, they do sleep deeper. The second point on here is they're worried that the babies won't sleep as well. Well, when they sleep on their tummies, yes, they do sleep deeper, but the reason that you want to put them on their backs is if they're lying on their back and if something happens, then they wake up more easily if they're on their backs, and that's what you want to happen, rather than them sleeping through things until they transpire. Also, babies sleep better, longer, or more deeply when they're on their stomach. So I just discussed that. Yes, that is true. But you don't want them sleeping where they can't wake up if they're startled. The baby will get a flat head if the baby sleeps on their back. That's true. If the baby is constantly laying on the back of their head, they can get flat head. The good news is that goes away. The baby will get a bald spot from sleeping on the back of the head. That's another possibility. But the thing is, whenever a baby's not asleep, that baby really needs to be up being nurtured, playing, or something. So the time that a child's going to be on the back, lying on the back of their head just from sleeping, really isn't going to pose that big of a deal. The problem is when parents leave children in their car seats for long periods of time, or instead of having them up. Also, they are put on their tummies because when the baby is on the back, he or she startles more easily and wakes up, and that's exactly what you want to happen. When babies sleep on their backs, they don't develop normally. That's another truth. That is why their child care centers and at home as well, tummy time is very important, because if you don't spend tummy time, then the muscles in the back will not develop as quickly, or as they won't be as developed as they need to be. So yes, put them to sleep on their back, but let them spend wake time on their tummy. Work that into your lesson plans. Okay, so here's the diagram that I was talking about the anatomy when babies are sleeping on their stomach. If you look, you'll see the trachea there in the front, and you'll see the esophagus in the back. Okay, so you have the windpipe, and you have the where the food goes down. I'm gonna pause this for just a second. Okay, so the trachea is in the front there, you see, and that is your windpipe, and the esophagus is where you swallow and the food goes into your stomach. So if a child is sleeping on their stomach, the food can come up the esophagus and actually get stuck in the windpipe and cause choking. Okay, but if the child is lying on their back, then that takes that possibility away because the food is in the back and the windpipe still remains free if the child does have food to come up. Okay, so now there's a picture of the child lying on their back. So the food pipe or the esophagus is in the back and the trachea is in the front. So the concern about the food getting caught in the windpipe is taken away. Okay, so implementing SIDS risk reduction. You want to do that in your child care center because these numbers are real, and that's very traumatic to the family and would be traumatic to everyone in your center, the owner and everyone who works there, all the children, all the families. So you want to do everything to reduce it. Tummy time to play. So whenever that child's up, play with them on their tummy so those backs can get nice and develop those muscles, and then put them on their backs to go to sleep. Practice safe sleep policies. Practice a safe sleep environment. So we'll look at more about what that entails. But yeah, you want to have sleep policies. Even if you have a substitute that's coming in, train them. We put these babies to sleep on their back. I always put healthy babies to sleep on their back for nap and at bedtime. So even if they're just taking a nap, put them on their back. Do not have more than one baby per crib. Well, we know that that's part of minimum standards, but still, in your center, make sure all of your providers know that. Avoid overheating. It's important that when you're practicing good sleep practices, that you avoid overheating that baby by overdressing them. Never cover the baby's head with a blanket. This is a violation of minimum standards. We used to have policies with the blankets according to minimum standards, but now you need to control your room temperature and not even put a blanket with the baby. Room temperature should be comfortable for a lightly clothed adult. So if it's comfortable to you when you're lightly clothed, then that child shouldn't overheat in that situation. Pacifiers also may be offered to babies to reduce their risk of SIDS. If breastfed, wait until breastfeeding is well established. So if you have a child who is getting started breastfeeding, you want them to be very good at breastfeeding, approximately 3 or 4 weeks before you do offer that pacifier. But that is a way to practice good sleep policies and reduce SIDS. If the baby refuses a pacifier, don't force it in the baby's mouth. It's okay. If the pacifier falls out of the baby's mouth while they're asleep, you don't have to reinsert it, as long as that baby's on the back. As far as your safe sleep environment, make sure you have a safe crib that meets standards. Firm mattresses on that bed. You don't want soft mattresses. That's going to give. Avoid chairs, sofas, air mattress, water beds, and adult beds in your sleep environment. It's okay to have chairs in your room, sofas in the room, but not for sleep purposes. No excess bedding, comforters, or pillows. Again, that violates minimum standards. You shouldn't have anything in those cribs with the baby. You can use a blanket sleeper or a sleep sack for the baby instead of a blanket if they need extra warmth. No bibs around the baby's neck as well. Bumper pads are not needed in your sleep environment. No toys, no stuffed animals. We want to minimize these risks of SIDS. Be aware of parents. Be aware of that parents, they do like for their baby to have things from home with them as a comfort, but help the child, as child caregivers, help the parents know that this is a risk to them, and help them identify other ways that the child can be comforted, maybe a picture of the parent or something. And also, you want to maintain a smoke-free environment. So, what do we need to do? We need to implement caring for our children standards, and those standards are listed online. You can just look for caring for our children standards, or your local county extension office will have a copy of those standards. Have a safe sleep policy that practices all the things that I mentioned earlier. Train all your caregivers. Again, if you have a caregiver that only comes in once a month, train them on your sleep policy. Talk with child care health consultant. Be able to handle an infant medical emergency and be aware of bereavement resources. So if a SIDS death does happen, then you want to provide the parents with resources to help them through that, and as well as your staff. Okay, so handling parents' concerns. You want to discuss SIDS and the SIDS reduction strategies with your parents. Send them a one-pager about SIDS. Your county extension office will have that. Discuss sleep position policies. Let them know that the position that you put children to sleep in is on their back. Now, something I'm normally asked in this presentation, well, what if the child rolls over while they're asleep? That's fine if they can roll over, but you want to start them on their backs. Then also discuss medical waivers and implications. So the only time that you are allowed to put the child to sleep on their tummies is if that parent provides you with a medical waiver. But still let that parent know what those implications are. Okay, so how do you handle a medical emergency? This would be a difficult time if it did happen, but it's important that you do have a plan in place. Review that plan with all staff members periodically. So when you're having your staff meetings, talk about, hey, if we have a emergency where a child passes from SIDS, what are we going to do? What is our policy? Be sure you have received training and have successfully practiced rescue breathing skills and handling blocked airway in an infant in your first aid course. So we know that's taken care of as well with minimum standards. It is a requirement. Okay, so first aid for unresponsive infant. Teaching CPR skills is beyond the scope of this workshop, but make sure that that training has taken place. Make sure that each employee has practiced it on a mannequin. But if you find a youth unresponsible, call 911. Get someone to call 911. Get help to care for the other children. They're going to need to still be taken care of. Call the child's parents or emergency contact. Those numbers should be by your phone. Call the parents of the other children. Let them know that we have an unresponsive child. So have something in place so you'll know exactly how this would go if it happened, which God forbid it. I hope it never does. Do not disturb the scene. So don't try to clean things up. Just leave things as there is, because remember, we said that in order for it to be declared SIDS, there has to be a death scene investigation and an autopsy. Notify licensing agency and also your insurance agency. Okay, so what to expect if a baby dies in investigation. Again, you have to have that death scene investigation to rule out any foul play. That's actually a good thing to protect you from to verify that it wasn't because of your negligence. Several people will ask you the same questions. Don't get offended. Just answer the questions. It's all part of the investigation. Expect law enforcement to come in. They're going to ask you questions about the baby's health, the baby's behavior. They're going to take pictures. Limit disturbance of the area. So you don't want to, again, tighten up things. You can expect licensing agents to ask questions about license regulations. So they want to make sure that all the regulations were being followed. SIDS death, not a reason for revoking your license. So just because you have a SIDS death, you don't have to necessarily be worried about your license being revoked, okay? Because that autopsy is going to clear you. The coroner, you can also expect a coroner or medical examiner to conduct an autopsy and determine the cause of death. Okay, so the partners and the resources, again, we were trained by the Back to Sleep campaign group, and their contact information is on the slide. There's a phone number. If you have any questions or concerns about SIDS, 1-800-505-CRIB. You can receive informational brochures, posters, and provide families and child care providers with resources. You go to their website, there's so much stuff there. Okay, so First Candle, SIDS Alliance is also part of the group, and National SIDS and Sudden Infant Death Program Support Center. And also the resource, National SIDS and CJ Foundation for SIDS.